All right, first of all, I'm sure somebody will want to point it out that yes, I'm wearing a scarf. Yes, I don't have a coat on, but it's very cold in our office. If you can hear Monica's space heater running behind me, so just deal with it. It's not a fashion statement. My neck gets cold. I have a long neck. So we're on an off week of the residency, and I'm going to follow the theme all the way up until the last one. I may switch it on the last one. I've got to switch this autofocus at some point because it bugs me. It pops in and out so easily on the farm business journey. But what I want to do today is because I want to do the last one on where do we think the farm's going, what are our goals, some of our aspirations, things like that. But what I want to do on this one is talk about kind of my business journey, what I did in undergrad all the way up until now, and then the different things I've done within the business on my own and with the farm. So going way back, which makes me feel old now to say that I graduated undergrad in 2006 from Southern Illinois University, from the COBA, the College of Business Administration. So I was an undergrad marketing major with basically specifics in market research and entrepreneurship. And I honestly started undergrad pre-med when I went through school, because I initially thought I was going to chiropractic school all the way from high school. And then I honestly got freaked out by the amount of money that it took to go to school. And I like to have money. So I was just like, I don't know if I want to go in that much debt. And my sister at the time was a drug rep for Novartis, which is a huge pharmaceutical firm. She was in the heyday of pharmaceutical reps, and she was in Alaska. So when I would go up there during the summer, and I did an internship there with Novartis one summer. I mean, this is when you could still take doctors on like salmon fishing trips. I mean, anything you can think of, bear sightseeing safari tours, all these things, dinners every week. So I just was in that zone. I was like, this is awesome. So I was like, well, I can use my pre-med background and then switch over to business. And this is like a perfect fit, and had already done the internship and was pretty much dead set on moving back up to Alaska, which I did, and working for Novartis, which I did not. So my capstone senior research or senior project for my marketing degree was with basically you got paired with a company, and we got paired with Remax Realty out of, I can't remember where specifically, but in South Carolina. It was a realtor, and basically you could hire students out of our marketing department for free, pro bono, and we had to do actual real world work. And this was I think we had a team of 4, and we did the market research for this Remax realtor who was going out on his own. So basically hanging his own shingle up, and wanted to know, where should I open? What should I focus on? What demographic? So that was, pretty boring at the time, to be honest with you. But it was pretty cool also to see that well, this is actually how it works. So I take that back. It wasn't pro bono. It was a heavily discounted rate, but you only, as the business that came in and sought out this advice, you only had to pay for the services if you thought it was worth it. Like if you agreed to use the information. So we had this, I think, massive 400-page market research report, and turned it over. And not only did that realtor use it, but all of Remax Realty within the South Carolina territory that it was in ended up using this data. We didn't make any money off that, but the school did. So that's where I came from. And then, as anybody that's graduated with a business degree realizes, especially during that era, when you get out of school with a marketing degree, it's like, what the hell am I going to do now? So I had 2 friends, one that I lived with during undergrad that had moved to Tampa, Florida. I'm originally from Illinois. So I went down there to stay with them, to start looking for some jobs, see if that was a good fit. Went and did some interviews. Well, lo and behold, my half sibling's uncle, so no really blood relation to me, but congenial nonetheless, was the CIO, or the chief information officer, of a health brokerage firm that he had helped found called Health Plan Services, which is still running to this day. And he created the software for this firm. So he heard from my sister that I was looking for a job, called me in. I think I had met him when I was a little kid, like at their wedding or something. I hadn't seen him since then. And he very quickly was like, man, we could definitely use you here, but you're going to have to start I remember I told him during my interview, I was like, I will do anything except do inside sales. And he goes, you're going to have to start with inside sales, which is basically selling things, insurance over the phone. Nightmare. Um, so I'm telling you a lot here. So I just want you to know my whole story and maybe you learn something from it. So basically, I got this job where I was on the phone, 8 hours a day, calling insurance agents all across the US, trying to sell them our pre-packaged plans. And we had a bonus structure set up, and the bonus structure was based off call volume and then obviously sales. So me being a wise guy, I realized that the total call volume was based off of any call made, voicemail, return call. So when we got into the office on East Coast time in Florida at 8 a.m. and started making calls, I called all the West Coast companies and then started working back across the US. So by the time that it was like 10, 11 a.m., I would start getting calls back from the West Coast companies that I left voicemails with, and then work backwards. So I got usually double the amount of calls. So I made a bunch of money off call volume like that. And then until they told me that I couldn't do that. And I said, well, no, I just used the rules you made against you. But it was stuff like that, honestly, me pushing around and kind of prodding to the point where I kind of had it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is just so boring to me. I sent an email to the vice president of marketing, who was technically over my boss. I didn't really get along with my boss that much. Couldn't find out he was addicted to pain pills, so I don't think anybody got along with him that well. But I emailed her and my uncle one morning. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. This is not like anything close to what I want to do. I apologize, but I'm going to be making an exit. And I get a call back within 20 minutes from the VP of marketing, Robin. And she's like, you can't quit because we just created a new job for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, we're going to make you our first ever regional sales consultant. So you're going to personally fly around a 6-state territory, which happened to be the Midwest from. So I think I had Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri. I can't remember. I had 6 states. But I was basically the manager of the internal team that called the people in those states for the most part. And then I traveled around. Basically, my job was to wine and dine these insurance agents. It took all of about 2 months of doing that job to realize that people that make the rounds at insurance trade shows seem to be, I'm not going to say they were mainly alcoholics, not very happy, a lot of infidelity within the ranks because everybody went to these same things, and just not what I wanted to be doing at 23, 22 years old. So I gladly thank them after a few more months. I also, met back up with my college girlfriend, and she was moving to Telluride, Colorado. And as we started talking, things happened, and she's like, why don't you move back out with me? So I moved to Telluride, Colorado, pack up a Mitsubishi Montero, drive all the way to Telluride. My parents think I'm absolutely crazy because I just left a job where I was making bank. Straight out of college, they're like, oh, you're set, just career path. You'll probably retire from this company. Everybody loves you. Let's blow that up. Let's put a fuse on that and light it. So I drive out to Telluride. I get out there, and the very first job that I land within like a day, because maybe 2 days, so my girlfriend at the time was in hospitality, so she had a job set up with a hotel, and I told her, I was like, I need a job, and I think somebody she knew out there was like, hey, well, there's a moving company that could use some help. So Joe Mama's Movers was my first job with one of my actually friends I grew up with that moved out there with me too, Jordan, and then my buddy that I met from South Africa, Rowan. So we ran this crew, moving multi-million-dollar homes around Telluride and the surrounding areas. I got to move like Tom Cruise and people like that. So it was a pretty crazy job, but it was also a dirtbag job. Right? It was a moving company in Telluride, Colorado, which is really designed for ski bums. Bank a bunch of money during the summer, work your ass off when nobody's moving there in the winter, then go ski and try to work at a bar or something. So it took me about a month doing that, and basically it made decent money and really good tips, but being like, I can't do that anymore. Monica's laughing at me back here. So I started looking around for another job. Well, if you've ever been to Telluride, there's Telluride Mountain Village, and we lived up in Mountain Village, 132 Alexander Overlook. Can still remember the address. There was a North Face shop up there, and maybe they had a job posting for an assistant manager. So I went in there, and I remember Lauren Knox was the manager at the time, and I applied. And at this time, having a college degree and like going into that job in Florida and going into North Face still mattered. Now, pretty liquidated. So I go in, she's like, yeah, you're hired. So I was the assistant manager of the North Face, I don't know, for maybe 2 months. And that got really boring to me. Retail is terrible in my opinion. So right across the street from North Face was Telluride Ski Resort headquarters. And I maybe went inside, maybe I was looking on job posting boards, but there was a job posting for a marketing assistant. And so I applied, met with the president of marketing at the time, and I'm blanking on his name, but the vice president, or now she is the president, Charity Banker, was the person that technically hired me. And I became basically the marketing assistant and eventually the assistant marketing director. And basically I had an awesome job. I skied 122 days that year. I helped with all marketing operations for the mountain. My main focus was on ski clubs across America. And we would go to trade shows and fly around the US and talk to these groups and try to entice them to come to Telluride for their annual trip. And in addition to that, I gave, big group tours for these. When the ski groups would come in, I'd be the guy on the mountain, and we'd run these kind of nice dinners, out on the ski slopes for these groups. So it's kind of this like highfalutin marketing / concierge job. Very, very cool. And I made decent money. I mean, maybe 35K or something. Not terrible, but living in Telluride, Colorado, $35,000 might as well be like $15,000. And I realized that, like, man, if you don't come into a place like Telluride with a lot of money, or you're in real estate, or you're that president of marketing, and I didn't want to spend a decade working my way up. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be making the money that I want to. So I started thinking about some other stuff. And at the same time, stuff was falling apart with my girlfriend. So every one thing I need to back up, every summer in between my undergrad, or every summer of my undergrad, I would go up to Alaska. And like the first summer was my summer that I graduated high school. I went up and worked, and I worked at a health club, the Alaska Club. And it was like a front desk guy at basically a gym. The next summer I went up, I worked at, what did I do then? I worked at a indoor water park. Some interesting stories there, and did some other stuff, some odd jobs and things like that. I framed houses one summer. So did a lot of different stuff. So then I'm thinking, well, I'm out in the West. I'm really digging the skiing thing. So I call my sister and I'm like, hey, stuff is just going south here relationship wise. And I'm not, this is not a good end game, I don't think. So what about and she had recently went through divorce. Like, what if I move up and I, live with you, pay you some rent and stuff like that? Ended up not having to pay rent. I got a good sister, so she let me bum off her for a while. So I move up there, and I'm trying to put my marketing degree to use, and I get a job with Integrity Roofing. I know you're just like, this is the story of Beau, but I'm giving you my business lineage and showing you how this paid off in our practice. Integrity Roofing, super small company. So there's two owners. There's a very interesting story here that I'll tell real quick. Two owners, and one of the owners, him and his wife technically owned it together on their share. And then besides the actual laborers and maybe a couple sales guys, I was the first like employee of like the internal department. And they bought me all the fancy software, Photoshop, all this stuff to start marketing. And I don't know, the one owner, a little bit older guy, did things a little bit old school. And then Chris Dunn was actually younger than me. And him and his wife, Audrey, interesting thing, originally from Vancouver Island. They took me to a dinner one time, and they like told me, they're like, we're going to be millionaires, like, rest assured. And they're like, we want you to come with us on this journey, regardless of what that looks like. And I would already realize like the writings on the wall with this roofing company is like, this is not, this sucks. And I kind of told him that, and I was like, I wish I could stick around, but like, I can't afford, like, this isn't enough money for me to stick around. Well, I just linked back up with Chris via social media. They are legit millionaires. Run multiple different real estate remodeling construction companies. So like the dude did it, and they are just absolutely killing it. I don't even know if he works anymore, and he's younger than me. So kind of cool there. But anyways, from that job, I kind of floated into a couple other marketing jobs, very short term, and then I got introduced to Tony Goodrich, who was co-owner, or technically owned, the Alaska branch of what's called Oxford Assaying and Refining, which is a gold and silver precious metals refining and assaying service. And she wanted to bring me in to be the commodities broker, the guy that sold the gold and the silver that we brought in from miners. Like, we worked with literally people that you see on like the Yukon or Alaska Gold Rush, all those shows. We worked with all those people. And we determined the purity. I was the guy that sold it on the Asian, European, and US markets. It was a fun job. There was some sideways, it's not a super above the cuff business. It's a very illegal money laundering business, and you kind of see that, or legal money laundering. And there were just things I wasn't comfortable with. Really good money. I got paid in a lot of cash and a lot of gold, which is kind of cool. But a very small business. I think total there were 7 employees in the Alaska office, and we had another office in Fairbanks, and then we were headquarters out of New York. And I ended up, dating the owner, the company's daughter for quite a while and stuff like that. And then kind of realized, like, not a healthy environment. So my boss at that job is no longer with us. She also drank about a 5th of vodka by 5 p.m. every day. There's a reason she's not with us anymore. But it was a very fun environment, very unhealthy environment. So I was always kind of the bug in my boss's Tony's ear. She was, probably 300 pounds. She was as fun as she was heavy, though. And I was always talking to her about health. And she would always joke with me. She's like, "Your damn pretty boy face, like, and smile. We're probably going to see you on TV, like on one of those shows, like The Doctors or something." So I just started to see this dichotomy, or the split of like, man, I really am enjoying making the money and it's fun and all that stuff. But like, this whole like not focusing on health is really like making me want to focus on it. And obviously I'd thought about chiro school before. So then I applied for chiropractic school. The rest is history on the school side. I went back, that was 2009. And I went back in the fall of 2009, or went to Logan in 2009. So then, fast forward, all the beginning of the farm business and all that stuff. So when I get in here, I get to put all these unique skills together to help run the business. But I've also done a lot of different stuff on my own and within the business to try to make some, secondary, tertiary revenue streams. So like, one of the very first things that I started to do when we got into business, when it was, small office, just me and Sloan, I had a lot of time when I wasn't seeing patients. So I started writing a lot, and I wrote for quite a few magazines for a while. It was kind of cool. The first article I got published in a major magazine was Trail Runner magazine. I didn't realize that it was a paid thing. So I got, I think they sent me a check for $250 for an article. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So started doing that quite a bit, wrote for some local magazines, some other national publications. Outside of that, I quickly realized that like the social media thing before it got really big, of partnering with companies, could be a big deal with like leveraging your social networking, social worth, whatever you want to call it. But also a cool way to maybe get free stuff, maybe make some money. A lot of that didn't work out. So I've worked from everybody from now Lululemon, Territory Run Co., Ultra, Solomon, North Face. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, a lot of Camelback. I'm, all these companies that, want to give you free stuff, but like, there's very few ways to make money being a doctor. Now, if I was a pro athlete, cool. But not a lot of people are looking to sponsor chiropractor. I wish they were. That would be pretty sweet. And I've petitioned people to do that. So some of the other ways that I've made ancillary income in here, one of the first kind of side ventures that I did was kind of creating this concierge health program. So I actually had and I'm giving you this now because hopefully this maybe gives you some ideas of things you could do besides just treat patients, because that's great. But like, yeah, we always talk about these like secondary and tertiary revenue streams, like you need more revenue streams, but just like Kevin Christie talks about, like you want these things to stack, right? You don't necessarily want to say, well, I'm a chiropractor, like I'm going to get into real estate. Like, do those skill sets stack? Or are you just kind of like spreading yourself more and more thin, even though you're making more money, and then pretty soon like the cards fall? I think we need to like build upon. So one of the things I did was start this concierge health program, because CEO of a very large company here was working with me just on injury stuff. And he was like, can you just take over my health? I was like, yeah, but you're going to pay me this much. He goes, that's fine. So then I go, well, the whole thing is we need other people to do this. And I knew that he had friends, along with deep pockets. So I was like, you need to get some other people into this. So we got 10 people that could afford $10,000 a year was the rate. And I said, for that $10,000, I will take care of your health. I'm not your primary care physician, but when it comes to, nutrition, hydration, sleep, movement, exercise, all those things, I got you. And then we will still try to manage your health from like the medications you're taking and thing alongside of your primary care physician. It took all of 3 months to kill that business, for me to kill it, because you're dealing with people that are already successful. So my mindset was, well, these are successful people that are looking to be successful at everything. They are, but these are also very busy people. They want somebody to tell them what to do, which I was pretty good at, but I was telling them things that maybe they weren't willing to change. And I never had a great conversation with each one of these people up front about like, what are you willing to change? I know what you want to change. You want to lose weight. You want to be in shape. You want to XYZ. But when it came to what these people actually were willing to change, it was very little. And that was the thing. The guy that lasted longest was the guy that started the whole thing with me. But even he, by the end of the day, was like, I've made some changes I'll stick with, but like, this is just basically too tough, which I was like, too tough. Like, so it was just kind of a reality check for me of like, okay, he asked me to take over his health. I was trying to optimize his health. Those were two different things. He wanted somebody to just like handhold him, probably kind of like, he wanted to get off his like blood pressure medication. Well, if you want to get off your blood pressure medication, there's 3 steps that probably come before that. Well, he wanted another magic bullet, and that's not the way it works. We know that, right? So that was one thing that I did. It was a good one shot, money maker, but it wasn't an awesome, long-term thing. I wish I could still do something like that. Like Ben Greenfield, I don't know if you ever looked at his coaching fees per month. I mean, people pay him upwards, I think, of like 2,500 to $3,000 a month for his coaching, which is all-encompassing health coaching. That's a lot of money. He only takes, I think, 6 people at a time or something like that. But still, if you could have an extra, 18, 20K per month from coaching clients, that would be awesome. That's what like we all know, the Netflix model, like these return revenue models of monthly revenue are great. So, I mean, I've tried to do it with run coaching numerous times, which I've had, mild success at. I would still like to work with athletes, but what I'm willing to charge, or what I want to charge for, most of my amateur runners aren't willing to pay. Like, so I would have to get pro runners. Well, I don't have that market value. People don't know me in that realm yet, because I haven't won like Zagama or UTMB or any of these big races. So it's just I have to rest on my laurels, which just because you win those races doesn't necessarily make you a good coach. But you know how it goes in the sports and athletic world. That's how people get known. So I've tried running coaching, health coaching. Obviously, Sloan at one point started the Gymnast Fix, which I still think has a ton of value. It's I think it's kind of like dying on the vine, but it was a total online company aimed at the prehab, rehab, and prevention of gymnastics injuries with a full teachable format. I mean, fantastic. Spent a ton of time and money with videos and photography and website build out. All this still exists. And it's just sitting there. And I've told her numerous times that, this was an us deal, but she should just sell 50%, if not more, of the company to somebody that would do something with it. And making 50% of $300,000 is better than making 50% of nothing, or 100% of nothing. So I helped out a lot with that. And then I've always been in the podcast game, which can be a moneymaker. I've never had that focus. You have to put in the work to go grab sponsors, get enough, bandwidth to make it worthwhile to the sponsors. But that's, could be a good play. I do make money off YouTube now. I make about, I think my last check was like $1,000. So $1,000 a month off YouTube. It only took 8 years to 7 years to start making some money off of it. I mean, that could be a really big one. I mean, you see a snowball effect. Now it's growing faster. But I mean, if you could get to the point, and I'm sure they'll change the algorithm as soon as I start doing it. If you're making $5,000 a month off YouTube, I know people that make a lot more than that. I mean, that would be great, right? I'll take an extra 60K a year. That's, yeah, cool. Awesome. Does it take work? Yeah. I mean, it's just like shooting these videos. These aren't the easiest things to find time that's quiet to sit down, that you're not seeing patients, you're with your family to do these. Be dedicated to doing it, be consistent, but also deliver stuff that's actually worth watching, which, when I first started doing YouTube, it was aimed at just these videos are for exercises to give my patients, and we sent them out via an Excel spreadsheet. Well, then it quickly turned into, oh, look at all these people have questions, and then, stuff like that. And then, you know, doing the social media and doing YouTube and all those then have now allowed me to leverage some of my ideas into another revenue stream, which is teaching, which I really like to do and like to do a lot more of. But I really just got into over the last, I would say, 3 years, right? The first big teaching thing I did besides local was the ACASC Sports Council. I mean, you can make a lot of money teaching. Now you may spend a lot of time on the road, but there's a lot of ways to pave that path. And I've talked about the other way to make money in here is, hosting classes, which is probably going to make you way more money than teaching your own classes. I mean, look at the best doing it, like Brett and, Taylor with Gestalt. I mean, they're just killing it. I would guarantee you that company gross is bringing them in $250,000 a year, right? Gross. I don't know. And that's not a huge overhead besides the manpower behind it, the people that are actually paying. So, I mean, now we're looking at like YouTube teaching. I do a lot of virtual consults, which is still kind of in the treatment realm, I guess, but that's another income source. We have our other, we sell supplements and stuff like that. That's so minimal. I don't count that. And then, like the book, like one more source of media, which I don't know what the sales are at now. It's not huge yet, maybe a couple $1,000s. But you just need to realize that like you have a very unique background, just like I do. And it doesn't have to be a business-based background. Sometimes it's better not, to have a specific background, aimed at what you're doing. But your unique background needs to be realized in what you're doing every day to capitalize on those unique talents. And that's the people who are making a lot of money are not just seeing patients and then going home, right? I don't believe that. Like if you need to diversify with all of your skill sets, right? I used to be a professional photographer. I guess I forgot that one. I was one of the summers I lived in Alaska. So I still I sell photos every once in a while. I mean, part of that's me just being like kind of a little, I want to see, sometimes it's a blessing and a curse. Like I over professionalize everything, right? Anything I do, whether it's running or whatever, I'm like, I want to be the best at it. I want to be a pro. I want to make money off of it. And my wife, bless her heart, and rightly has sometimes said, well, why can't that just be a hobby? Why can't you just enjoy that? And sometimes it's a reality that like, I'm not going to be a pro trail runner. I thought at one point that I was, maybe I could have been if I would have gotten in the game earlier. But like, there's also not a lot of money in that. And not everything's about money. Do what you enjoy. But at the same token, like one of my goals is to create a comfortable life for myself and my family. And that has some specifics behind it, but the way that you do that could be wildly different besides just patient-based revenue. And I hope that's kind of freeing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's been a decent ancillary moneymaker within the walls of our office. I mean, we have had a strength conditioning coach in here, and we will be opening a gym. We'll talk about that maybe on where we're going. I don't know how big of an income source that will be, but it will definitely help. Now we have even tenants in our building. So we have a physical therapist now that is technically just a renting entity from us. That's kind of nice because that's an extra, they pay us $1,000 a month. So, I mean, it's something that I think is very cool. And I know this is kind of like the Monopoly game. I love seeing money coming into our bank accounts from a bunch of different spots. Like, oh, this got transferred in from a virtual console. Oh, I sold some books. Oh, here's revenue from, a teaching thing. Oh, here's what we got from Blue Cross. Like I like seeing all these different things come in. One more thing that I haven't mentioned that could have been a very good moneymaker, and it was while I did it. And this could be a route that you want to choose as a physician, that, working with that pro tennis player that I did in 2019, I only worked with him for 2 months, extremely lucrative. I mean, in 2 months, I don't know, $20,000 or something. had I decided to go on tour with him, I mean, maybe not him specifically because he hasn't won a bunch, but like there is money to treat pro athletes. But again, then you're on the road a lot. You got to give up some of what you're going to be able to do in the clinic. But it's all like there's just such a wide berth of what we can do with our skills. Make sure that it's like what you want to do. That's something I honestly struggle with, if I'm being honest, of like, I'll get down a path and be like, God, I don't really want to do this. And then if you get down a path too far and you're making a lot of money, it's really hard to reverse course on that. So just be aware of that stuff. I hope me rambling about my past, because that's kind of what I want to give you guys, is like insights, like where I've been, what I've done. So hopefully it spurs more questions. And I'm going to put this in the Facebook forum. That the next grand rounds, I just want it to be complete Q&A because it's the last grand rounds of the session. And I don't care what it's on, clinical stuff, business stuff, personal stuff. But let me know, because I'm here to help, and I hope this stuff does help. And on future residencies, we'll be able to get, I see this residency thing going on forever. So when I do these videos, it's just me. I don't have to do this again. I don't have to tell these stories. And then we can just get more specific as time goes on, because we've kind of like given the background. We're moving through time as the farm, and as things happen, I'll be elucidating all that. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you at the next grand rounds.